There is a part of Tokyo with no subway, no airport, no intersections lit up all night long, and none of the rushed pace people usually picture when they think of Japan's capital. To get there, you can't just hop on a bullet train. You have to leave Takashiba Pier, board a large ship called the Ogasawara Maru, and travel about 24 hours south, across the Pacific Ocean, until the horizon holds nothing but sea, wind, and clouds, and the feeling that Tokyo is slowly disappearing behind you. That place is Ogasawara. On paper, it still belongs to Tokyo, but in feel, in rhythm, in distance, in the way people wait for the ship, gaze out at the sea, and live with the weather and the isolation, Ogasawara is like a different world. And the question begins with that very paradox. How can a place that belongs to Tokyo be so far from Tokyo? And the real question isn't how beautiful Ogasawara is, because the beauty here is easy to see. Blue ocean, subtropical forests, whales, dolphins, volcanic cliffs, beaches that feel almost cut off from the rest of the world. But beauty is only the first layer. The deeper question is this: how do people actually live in a place like this? How does a small community survive in the middle of the Pacific, when every trip, every shipment, every homecoming depends on a single ship? How does a place that belongs to Tokyo not live by Tokyo's rhythm? And what happens to the idea of a capital, when one part of it lies so far from the mainland that just getting there feels like stepping outside of modern Japan? Ogasawara doesn't only raise a question about distance, it raises a question about what it means to belong. On the map, Ogasawara is part of Tokyo. But seen through the feeling of distance, it sits almost outside the breadth of mainland Japan. This archipelago lies in the Northwest Pacific, about 1,000 kilometers south of Tokyo Bay. It is not a single island. It is a chain of more than 30 small islands, stretching about 400 kilometers from north to south. The chain includes the Mukojima, Chichijima, and Hahajima groups, the Kazan group, and isolated islands around them, like Nishinoshima. But in this whole world of islands, only Chichijima and Hahajima have permanent residents. The total population is only about 2,600 people, far fewer than a small neighborhood in central Tokyo. And that gap is what creates the paradox of Ogasawara, a piece of land that belongs to the capital, but lives at the scale of a remote island community. Here, distance isn't just 1,000 kilometers. Distance is a 24-hour ship ride. It is the days when the sea turns rough. It is the feeling that between you and the rest of Japan, there is always an ocean to cross. In Ogasawara, nature isn't just something to admire. It is the force that sets the rhythm of life. The sea here isn't a border around the islands. The sea is the only road that connects people to the rest of Japan. When the sea is calm, the ship arrives. Supplies arrive. Tourists arrive. Mail and the pulse of Tokyo arrive with them. When the sea turns rough, everything slows down. In a place without an airport, weather is no longer just the late-night news. It is the schedule. It is the limit. It is the thing everyone has to learn to accept. But that very isolation has created a natural world unlike almost anywhere else in Japan. Ogasawara is made up of oceanic islands that have never been connected to the continent. So life here has evolved along its own path. UNESCO has recognized that the archipelago has more than 30 islands, with many native plants, birds, corals, fish, and marine mammals, including rare creatures like the Bonin flying fox. Forests, cliffs, blue sea, dolphins, whales, coral reefs, and star-filled nights. They don't just create the beauty of Ogasawara, they create the feeling that people here are living in a world where nature still gets to speak before humans do. Before Ogasawara became a name on the modern map of Japan, it was known in English as the Bonin Islands. That name is said to come from the word bunin, meaning uninhabited islands. And that original emptiness is what set Ogasawara's history apart from many other island regions of Japan. The Tokyo metropolitan government also notes that Chichijima was once called Buninshima, meaning uninhabited island. Before a stable community took root, the first settlers who arrived here in the 19th century weren't only Japanese. In 1830, a group of people from the West and the Pacific made these islands their home. Among them was Nathaniel Savory, an American from Massachusetts, along with Europeans and Hawaiians. Later, during the Meiji era, Japan reasserted control over Ogasawara. More settlers were brought from the mainland, and the archipelago was placed under Tokyo's administrative system. That is why Ogasawara isn't just a remote island region. It is a place where many streams of history meet. Japan, the Pacific, the West, war, migration, return, and integration. A part of Tokyo, but its memory has never belonged to Tokyo alone. Life in Ogasawara doesn't begin with the sound of a train, not with the rush of people through Shinjuku Station, not with the flashing electronic boards in the heart of modern Tokyo. It begins with the sea. On Chichijima, people watch the ship schedule almost the way city dwellers watch their work calendar. When the Ogasawara Maru docks at Futami Port, the whole island feels a new pulse. Cargo is unloaded. Fresh food, mail, supplies, tourists, and family members coming home all pass through a single gateway. Then the ship leaves, and the island returns to its quieter days. The days when people know exactly that they are living in the middle of the ocean. Children go to school on the island. Adults work in local services, ecotourism, fishing, running boats, small shops, guest houses, conservation centers, and jobs tied to community life. Here, everything is on a smaller scale than the mainland. But for that very reason, every face is easier to recognize. A large supermarket in Tokyo can change its stock every hour. But in Ogasawara, many things have to wait for the ship. Convenience doesn't disappear entirely, but it is no longer something you can take for granted. Distance teaches people how to prepare, how to wait, and how to appreciate the very ordinary things that come easily on the mainland. In Ogasawara, identity isn't simply a small branch of Tokyo's culture. It is the result of many layers of people, many journeys, and many shifts of sovereignty stacked on top of each other in the middle of the Pacific. On Chichijima, there are families who still identify as Bonin Islanders. They are descendants of the first settler communities who came from the West and the Pacific Islands before the wave of Japanese settlers arrived from the mainland. In Ogasawara's linguistic history, researchers have noted that a mixed form of speech once existed. It is often called Bonin English, Ogasawara Creole, or Ogasawara Mixed Language. And it was formed from contact between Island English, Japanese, and various Pacific languages. Today, Japanese is the common language. Schools, administration, and modern life all run within the Japanese system. But under that surface, a very distinct island memory remains. Family names written in katakana, small churches, dances influenced by the South Pacific. Stories of ancestors who first arrived here, not on cruise ships, but after long voyages across the sea. Culture in Ogasawara, then, doesn't lie in complete separation from Japan. It lies in the blending itself. Part Tokyo, part Pacific, part the memory of people who once had to learn how to turn a faraway island into home. But no one can live on blue seas and star-filled nights alone. The more practical question is this: what do the people of Ogasawara live on when everything is about a day's drift across the ocean from Tokyo? The answer lies in the very terrain and climate of this archipelago. Documents on the management of the Ogasawara Natural Heritage Site note that the main industries here are tourism, agriculture, and fisheries. And ecotourism is promoted as a way to make use of nature while still trying to protect local resources. The sea brings fish. The subtropical climate makes it possible to grow vegetables, flowers, passion fruit, and other tropical fruits. The Ogasawara Maru doesn't only carry people, it also brings local products back to the mainland. Fish caught around the islands, farm produce, souvenirs, and the image of a very different Tokyo. But making a living here also calls for care, because the very thing that sustains Ogasawara is also what makes it fragile: nature. But no island, no matter how remote, truly stands outside the modern world. For Ogasawara, the biggest paradox lies in the very thing that makes it famous. The more unique the nature, the more people want to come. When a place is recognized as a World Natural Heritage Site, it isn't just better protected, it is also seen by more people. And when many eyes turn toward a small, fragile island ecosystem, the question is no longer simply how to bring visitors in. The question is how to let them come without changing the very thing they came to see. UNESCO has noted that invasive alien species, past extraction activities, and the risk of overdevelopment through tourism could all affect the natural value of Ogasawara. In particular, the possibility of opening up more access, including future ideas about air travel, has been mentioned as something that could have a major impact on a very vulnerable island environment. That is why every step here has to come with responsibility. The Ogasawara village government urges visitors to check their shoe, soles, clothes, and bags, so they don't carry seeds, soil, insects, or alien species into the mountain forests and smaller islands. Ogasawara doesn't just need visitors who come to admire. It needs people patient enough to understand that some places only stay this way if people learn to step a little more lightly. Maybe what makes Ogasawara special isn't only the blue sea, the whales, the dolphins, the subtropical forests, or its World Natural Heritage status. What makes it more special is the way people here live with distance. They can't turn Ogasawara into a miniature Tokyo, and maybe they don't need to. Because if Tokyo is speed, light, trains, skyscrapers, and the endless flow of people, then Ogasawara is the slowed down part of that same capital. A part that forces people to wait for the ship, to watch the weather, to understand that not everything can arrive in an instant, to live with the feeling that the sea doesn't only separate, it also protects. Here, remoteness isn't just inconvenience. It is what keeps the island still being itself. And maybe that is the lesson Ogasawara sends back to the mainland. Not every place that belongs to a city has to live by the rhythm of that city. Some places exist to remind us that slowness isn't a sign of being left behind. Sometimes It is a way to hold on to the soul of a land. Ogasawara is a part of Tokyo, but it doesn't belong to Tokyo's rushed pace. It sits on the same administrative map, but it lives in a different time, slower, farther, quieter, and maybe some places aren't far because of the distance. Some places are far because they still hold on to a way of life that the modern world has almost forgotten. What about you? Could you live in a place like Ogasawara? A place that still belongs to Tokyo, but takes 24 hours on the sea to reach. A place with fewer conveniences, less rush, but also more quiet moments. Moments where people can really see where they are living. Leave your thoughts below. If this story made you see Japan, Tokyo, and the meaning of distance a little differently, share this video with someone who also needs to know. Not every part of a capital has to be loud to be worth living in. In our next journey, we'll head to another land, a place where people continue to prove that the most distant places sometimes hold the things closest to the human heart. For now, remember this. Some places aren't far because they sit off the map. Some places are far because they still live by a rhythm the modern world has left behind. In the far north of Norway, dark mountains rise straight out of a cold sea. Here, there is an archipelago that looks almost made for 4K dreams. Red-roofed houses stand at the edge of the water. Small boats rest inside narrow fjords. In winter, snow settles over the fishing villages like a layer of white silence. Above them, the northern lights sometimes drift across the sky like green ribbons. And beneath the surface, schools of cod still move by an ancient instinct. An instinct that has fed the people here for generations. This is Lofoten. For travelers, Lofoten may seem like one of the most beautiful places in the Arctic. Sharp mountains, cold turquoise beaches, red rorbu cabins reflected in still water, and winter nights lit by the aurora. But behind that beauty is a life that is anything but simple. Here, the sea is not just scenery. The sea is a workplace, a source of income, a family memory, and sometimes the line between safety and danger. These small villages do not exist only to be photographed. They are places where people wake before dawn, check the weather, prepare their boats, mend their nets, welcome tourists, pay their rent, raise their children, and wonder whether their future belongs to fishing, tourism, or something in between. Lofoten is so beautiful that the whole world wants to come. But the real question is this: when an Arctic place becomes a dream for travelers from across the globe, how do the people who call it home continue to live here? From a distance, Lofoten is easy to mistake for a perfect postcard. A place of mountains, sea, snow, northern lights, red houses along the fjords, and roads winding past small fishing villages that seem to come from a Nordic fairy tale. For many people, Lofoten is a dream destination, a place to chase the northern lights, to drive scenic coastal roads, to sleep in a rorbu by the water, and to leave with hundreds of photos that barely need editing. But for the people who live here, Lofoten is not a single beautiful frame. It is the rough sea season. It is the days when the wind blows so hard that plans have to change. It is the smell of dried fish hanging in the open air. It is housing prices rising as tourism grows. And it is a young person's question. Should I continue the family fishing trade? Should I work in a restaurant? Should I open a place for visitors to stay? Or should I leave the islands and look for a more predictable future on the mainland? This is not only a story about a beautiful place. It is the story of a community living between two powerful forces. On one side, the Arctic Sea that has fed people here for generations. On the other, the modern world arriving faster than ever before. So the question of this video is not simply this: how beautiful is Lofoten? The real question is deeper. How do people live, adapt, and hold on to what matters in a place where nature, fishing, and tourism all shape their future at once? Lofoten lies off the northern coast of Norway, above the Arctic Circle. Here, the land begins to break apart into chains of islands, narrow fjords, and mountain headlands that drop straight into the Norwegian Sea. On a map, Lofoten does not look very large. But here, distance is not measured only in miles. It is measured in weather, in wind, in ferry schedules, in narrow roads running along the coast, and in the feeling that if you travel just a little farther, the modern world begins to thin out behind you. Villages like Rein, Hamnøy, Henningsvær, and Nusfjord sit between mountain and sea. The houses do not spread across wide, comfortable plains. They cling to small strips of land, where people have found a foothold among rock, water, and wind. In many places, one glance out the window can hold everything at once: the sea, the harbor, the cliffs, and a sky that keeps changing color with the weather. Today, Lofoten is far easier to reach than it once was. Roads, bridges, tunnels, ferries, and small airports have connected communities that were once more isolated from the rest of Norway. But easier to reach does not mean easier to live in. Winter can still slow everything down. Strong winds and rough seas can still change the day without warning. Fishing plans can be delayed. Goods can arrive late. Travel between islands can become more difficult. For the people here, geography is not something written in a textbook. It is present in ordinary decisions. A late shipment can affect the small shop in the village. A storm can keep boats in the harbor. A family taking a child to school, to the doctor, or to a place with more opportunity has to think about distance, time, and cost. This isolation once made Lofoten harder to live in, but it also helped give the place its distinct identity. The small fishing villages did not form because of tourism. They formed because the sea had fish, because people needed shelter, because, over many generations, families learned to read the wind, the waves, and the fishing season like a language of survival. In Lofoten, geography does not only create beautiful scenery, it creates livelihoods, a rhythm of life, limits, attachment, and the understanding that people here must always live with nature, never apart from it. In Lofoten, nature does not sit still for people to admire. It moves, it changes, it gives orders, it tests, and sometimes it becomes so quiet that you can hear mooring lines knocking against the side of a boat in a winter harbor. The mountains here are not a distant backdrop. They rise directly behind the villages, so close they feel like part of daily life. In winter, snow covers the slopes. Low light moves across the rocky peaks. and the whole archipelago seems to rest beneath a long, cold, windy sky. In summer, the midnight sun makes time feel strange. Night arrives, but the light remains on the sea. Still, Lofoten's greatest force is the sea. The sea feeds this place. For generations, cod has been part of its history, its economy, and its family memory. When the fishing season comes, the sea is no longer just a quiet blue space outside the window. It becomes a workplace, a place of risk, a place of hope. Boats head out into the cold and return with what has helped feed the whole community. A windy day can change every plan. Waves, fog, ice, and winter darkness force people to live in a state of readiness. Here, people do not only ask, "What are we doing today?" They ask, "Will the weather allow it?" Houses, harbors, roads, and daily habits all carry the mark of nature. The red rorbu cabins at the water's edge are not only photogenic, they were once practical shelters for fishermen, set close to the sea because the work kept them close to their boats. The outdoor fish drying racks are not just an unusual sight for visitors. They are part of an old preservation method, using cold wind and dry air to turn fish into something that could be stored, traded, and exported. In Lofoten, nature is both the greatest asset and the greatest limit. It gives fish, it gives scenery, it gives the magical light that draws visitors from around the world. But it also reminds people that life here is never fully under their control. Living in Lofoten means learning to negotiate with the sea, with the wind, with winter, with light, with darkness, and with the truth that, in a place this breathtaking, nature is always the strongest character in the story. To understand Lofoten, you cannot only look at the mountains, or the red houses, or the northern lights. You have to look down at the sea. Long before Lofoten became famous on the travel map, this was a land of fish, boats, wind, and fishing seasons repeated across centuries. The history of these islands did not begin with beautiful pictures on social media. It began with people who went to sea, with families who lived at the edge of the water, and with a fish that helped shape all of northern Norway, the Arctic cod, or skrei. Every winter, the skrei migrate from the Barents Sea to the waters around Lofoten to spawn. That natural event helped turn the archipelago into one of Norway's most important cod fishing centers. According to local tourism and museum sources, fishing in Lofoten has existed as an ancient livelihood. And for centuries, the fishing season mattered not only to the islanders, but to the entire coast of northern Norway. When there was more fish than the local community needed, people began drying it in the cold wind. Stockfish, or dried cod, became a product that could be stored for a long time. It could be shipped far away, and it could be traded with the outside world. What makes this remarkable is that Lofoten's climate is almost perfect for it. Cold enough that the fish does not spoil, windy enough to dry it, but not frozen in a way that would ruin the quality of the meat. Visit Norway also notes that Lofoten stockfish holds a protected geographical indication in Europe. As far back as the Middle Ages, Lofoten's dried fish traveled far beyond the small fishing villages. It was shipped to Bergen, and from there it entered the trade networks of Europe. Museum Nord notes that stockfish became an important export. It generated significant income, and it connected Lofoten's fishing villages to the wider world, both economically and culturally. This means Lofoten was never as cut off as it may appear. Yes, it lies far to the north, surrounded by wind and sea, but Lofoten has long had a thread connecting it to Europe, not by highway, not by the internet, but by dried fish, by boats, by merchants, and by the food needs of distant markets. The red rorbu cabins that visitors rent today also come from that history. At first, they were not romantic getaways for an Arctic holiday. They were where fishermen stayed during the season, close to the harbor, close to the storehouses, close to the sea. Because the work demanded that they remain near the place where the season was happening, over time, many of Lofoten's fishing villages grew around that rhythm. The season comes. The boats gather. The fish is clean. It is hung on racks, dried in the wind, and then sent away from the islands, traveling farther than many of the people who caught it. So history in Lofoten does not sit quietly inside a museum. It still carries the smell of dried fish in the wind. It stands in the outdoor drying racks. It lives in the harbors, in the names of the villages, and in the way a family speaks about a father or grandfather who once went to sea in winter. But that history also leads to a question in the present. If fishing once created Lofoten, then in a century of tourism, services, and global imagery, what will keep this community tied to the sea? A day in Lofoten usually begins by looking out the window, not to see whether the roads are busy, but to see what the sky, the sea, and the wind are saying. In many waterside villages, the weather is not a small detail. It decides whether boats can go out, whether tourists can take their tours, whether goods will arrive on time, and sometimes whether a person should drive to the next village or wait a few more hours. In winter, morning can arrive very slowly. The light is low, cold, slanting across the snow-covered peaks. In the harbors, fishing boats sit side by side. Their mooring lines pull tight in the wind. Some people prepare for work at sea. Others open cafes, restaurants, and small shops. Some check the rooms inside rorbu cabins that have become places for visitors to stay. Life in Lofoten no longer revolves only around fishing as it once did. But the sea is still the main axis. For families still tied to fishing, the cod season remains the key part of the year. The work is not only going out and pulling up fish, it is a whole chain, checking the gear, watching the forecast, preparing the boat, processing the catch, transporting it, selling it to the plant or to processors, and then doing it all again while the season allows. Every trip can bring income, but every trip also carries the risk of these cold northern waters. Onshore, another part of life is unfolding. Tourism has created many new jobs: guides, hotel staff, Aurora tour operators, kayak guides, climbing guides, sightseeing drivers, chefs, housekeepers, guest house owners, and people doing marketing for local businesses. Many houses that once served fishing life are now places to stay. Some families earn extra income by renting out rooms, but that also changes how people see their own village. A place once built around the rhythm of the sea now has to live by the rhythm of tourists as well. In the high season, small roads can become much busier than they were built for. Parking lots, eateries, shops, and viewpoints become meeting places between locals and people from all over the world. For travelers, it is a dream trip. For residents, it is both a chance to make a living and a pressure on their everyday space. Children in Lofoten grow up in a very particular world. They may go to school along roads that look straight out toward mountains and sea. They know the northern lights are not just something on a postcard. They are part of winter. They see fish hanging on outdoor racks, boats returning to the harbor, tourists stopping to photograph houses that, to them, are simply a neighbor's place, a relative's home, or somewhere their parents work. But growing up somewhere beautiful does not mean the future is easy to choose. A young person in Lofoten may wonder what path to take: fishing, tourism, study in a big city, or leaving the islands to find a future less dependent on the season and the weather. If they stay, they can live close to family, close to the sea, close to a familiar community. But they also face housing prices, limited job opportunities, and the feeling that the outside world is much wider than the small bays where they were born. In daily life, the closeness of the community still matters deeply. In small places, people know each other not only by name, they know each other by family, by occupation, by working season, by old stories. A local shop is not only a place to buy things, it is where people hear the news, ask after one another, learn which boat just came in, which family is fixing up their house, and who has opened a new service for visitors. Goods, food, fuel, and everyday supplies all depend on the transport system linking Lofoten to the mainland and the larger centers. Modern life is present here. Electricity, internet, schools, healthcare, roads, supermarkets, smartphones. But the island feeling is still there. When the weather turns bad, when a route is affected, when winter drags on, people still live behind the mountains. And when the northern lights begin to appear in the sky, Lofoten returns to the famous silence it is known for. But inside the lit-up houses, life is not a travel photo. It is a family's dinner after a long day of work. It is a father checking tomorrow's forecast. It is a mother answering a guest's booking message. It is a young person scrolling through opportunities in Oslo, Tromsø, or Bodo. It is a small community trying to hold on to its rhythm. Between the cold sea, the fishing season, and a growing wave of visitors. In Lofoten, everyday life is not dramatic in a loud way. It is dramatic in the small choices repeated every day. Go to sea or stay ashore. Keep the old trade or move into services. Open up to the world or protect the quiet of the village. Stay home or leave to seek a different future. Lofoten's identity does not live in a single symbol. It lives in the smell of dried fish hanging in the open air, in the red rorbu cabins standing at the edge of the water, in the sound of a boat engine leaving the harbor in the morning, in meals of cold seafood from the Northern Sea, and in the way people speak about the weather, not as small talk, but as part of life. In many parts of the world, culture is easiest to see in festivals, costumes, or special ceremonies. In Lofoten, it appears more quietly. It is found in the long relationship between people and the sea. Fishing does not only create income, it creates a rhythm of life. It shapes family memories, village layouts, eating habits, and the way houses are built. It also shapes local pride. To a visitor, an outdoor fish drying rack may look unusual, but in Lofoten, it is more than a strange sight. It is a trace of survival, a sign of a culture that learned to turn the cold climate into an advantage. The rorbu cabins carry the same kind of meaning. Today, many visitors wake up inside them with a view of the mountains. They photograph the still water at dawn. They experience the cabins as peaceful, beautiful, and remote. But before the rorbu became part of tourism, they belonged to working life. They were places where fishermen stayed during the season, places where they rested after long hours at sea, places where stories were told in rooms filled with the smell of salt, wood, damp clothes, and wind outside the door. So culture here is not separate from work. It grows out of work, out of weather, out of the sea, and out of the routines that have kept these villages alive. The same is true of the food: cod, dried fish, seafood. Simple dishes from a cold northern coast. All of it speaks to the way people made use of what nature allowed. In a land where farmland is limited and winter lasts a long time, the sea was once the greatest pantry. What people ate was not only about taste. It was about adaptation. It was about learning what could be stored, shared, dried, salted, cooked, and carried through the cold months. But today, Lofoten's identity faces a new question. As the world arrives with cameras, tour packages, social media, and expectations of an Arctic paradise, local culture can easily become a backdrop for someone else's experience. A real fishing village can be seen as a film set. A roorboe, once tied to labor, can become a symbol of leisure. A traditional dish can be served as something exotic, instead of being understood as part of a community's memory. That does not mean tourism brings only loss. Tourism also helps many young people stay. It creates new jobs. It encourages the preservation of old houses. It opens restaurants, retells local history, and makes the world pay attention to a land that was once far more remote. But one question remains important. Who gets to tell Lofoten's story? The visitors who come for a few days, or the people who live here through every season, including the long months when the cameras are usually gone? A sense of belonging in Lofoten does not come only from beauty. It comes from understanding what outsiders only glimpse, what a shift in the wind means, how much the fishing season matters, how many memories a quiet harbor can hold, and why some people, even after leaving, still carry this place within them. The mountains, the sea, the red houses by the water, not as separate images, but as one inseparable part of who they are. Lofoten's economy has always begun with the sea, not with the hotels along the fjords, not with the cafes looking out toward the mountains, and not with the aurora tours that now bring visitors into the Arctic night. It began with cod, with wooden boats, harbors, storehouses, mooring lines, nets, salt, cold wind, and the winter months when the whole community turns its eyes toward the water. For generations, cod was not just a product, it was the foundation of life. A good season could bring income, jobs, and stability for a family. It could give a fishing village another reason to keep going. A difficult season could make everything harder. Meals, boat repairs, fuel, and even a young person's decision about whether to continue the family trade. Fishing in Lofoten is not as romantic as it may look in photographs. Behind the image of a small boat crossing the fjord at dawn, there are long hours of work in the cold. There is the cost of fuel, the cost of equipment, maintenance, licenses, fishing regulations, market changes, and the constant risk of a life shaped by the sea. This kind of work takes experience. It takes discipline. It takes the ability to read the weather, understand the waters, and accept that the sea does not give the same answer every day. Some days, it allows a living. Some days, it does not. But today, Lofoten no longer lives by fish alone. Tourism has become a new economic pillar. Villages that were once quiet now have guest houses, restaurants, cafes, photo tours, climbing tours, kayak tours, whale watching tours, and aurora tours. Roorboe cabins that once served fishermen can now bring in better income as places for visitors to stay. For many families, tourism is an opportunity. It means they do not have to leave home to find work. It creates new jobs for young people. It helps old houses get repaired. It brings local stories back into the open. And it gives traditional products a wider market. But every opportunity has its price. When a small place becomes globally famous, land and housing begin to carry a different value. A house is no longer only a place to live. It can become a rental asset. A village is no longer only a community. It is also a destination. For some, this brings more income. For others, it makes life more difficult. It can make it harder to buy a home, harder to rent a place, harder to feel that the village still belongs first to the people who live there. Slowly, some locals may begin to feel that the place where they were born is being shaped more for visitors than for those who stay. So livelihoods in Lofoten now stand between two worlds. On one side is fishing, old, difficult, full of risk, but deeply tied to identity. On the other side is tourism, new, attractive, full of opportunity, but also dependent on the high season, on social media images, and on what outsiders come looking for. The real question is not whether Lofoten should choose fish or tourism. The question is how both can exist together, without losing what matters most, a real community. A place where people can still live, work, raise families, and call these small fishing villages home. Lofoten used to be a place where distance could be felt in every journey. Before modern roads made travel easier, before bridges, tunnels, ferries, and small airports connected the islands more closely, the fishing villages here depended heavily on the sea. The sea was the road. It carried fish out. It brought goods in. It moved people from one village to another. And when the weather turned bad, it could also cut off every connection. Today, Lofoten is no longer isolated in the same way it was in the past. Visitors can drive across bridges linking the islands. They can follow coastal roads between fishing villages. They can land at small regional airports or arrive from the larger cities of northern Norway. The internet has brought Lofoten even closer to the world. Smartphones, online booking systems, social media. A photograph of Rain or Hamnøy can appear on a screen in the United States, Japan, Germany, or Australia within seconds. But this new connectivity does not completely erase the island feeling. Goods still have to move through a longer transport chain than they would in a big city. Some specialized services are still found off the islands. So, are higher education, major hospitals, and a wider range of careers. For young people, connection to the world brings both hope and pressure. It opens new possibilities, but it also makes the question of leaving more real. They may love Lofoten deeply, but still imagine their future in Tromsø, Bodø, Oslo, or another city beyond the cold northern sea. Some may come back in summer. Some may work in tourism. Some may join the family business. Others may return with new ideas about media, food, design, services, and local business. So connection makes Lofoten both stronger and more fragile. It helps the community reach markets, visitors, technology, and new opportunities. But it also changes the rhythm of life. A place that once lived mainly by the movement of the sea now has to live with another rhythm as well. The rhythm of the internet, online bookings, the high season, travel algorithms, and the constant gaze of outsiders. In Lofoten, the world is no longer far away. But one question remains. When the world comes closer, will people use that connection to hold on to their homeland? Or will that same connection pull their homeland into a rhythm that no longer belongs to the sea? Lofoten is living with a very clear paradox. The same things that help this place survive for generations are now the things that bring the world here. The sea, the fishing villages, the Rorbu cabins, the mountains, the Arctic light, and the feeling of being far away. For local people, these were once conditions of life. For travelers around the world, they have become a dream image. And when a small community becomes famous, the change is never only on the surface. Tourism brings jobs, income, and opportunity. It helps old houses get repaired. It helps small businesses begin. It gives many young people a reason to stay, instead of leaving. A rorbu is no longer only a reminder of the fishing trade. It can become a new source of livelihood for a family. A cafe, a restaurant, an aurora tour, a climbing guide service. Each one can create another path for people who do not want to depend entirely on the sea. But tourism also raises a difficult question. How many people can a small place welcome before local life itself begins to change? In the high season, a beach can become crowded. A viewpoint can become crowded. A narrow village road can become crowded. For visitors, it may be a beautiful moment to capture. For residents, it can mean traffic, trash, pressure on local services, and the quiet feeling that a familiar place is slowly becoming a public space for outsiders. Housing and real estate are also part of this tension. When homes can become short-term rentals, the value of a house begins to change. For property owners, that can bring opportunity. But for young people who want to buy a home, start a family, and stay, it can make life much harder. A community needs more than hotels and guest houses. It needs real homes. Homes where children grow up, where people work through the whole year, where neighbors know each other in winter, not only in summer. At the same time, fishing faces pressures of its own. Climate change, fishing regulations, fuel prices, global markets, and the changing career choices of a younger generation. All of these shape the future of the industry that made Lofoten what it is. Fishing still matters deeply, but it is no longer the only path, and it is not always the easiest one to choose. For a young person, staying in Lofoten is not only a romantic story about loving home, it is also a practical question. Is there steady work here? Can I afford a home? Can I build a family? Will my life depend too much on the tourist season? Do I want to keep fishing in a time filled with uncertainty? So, Lofoten's tension is not simply between old and new. It is an ongoing negotiation between the sea and tourism, between housing and investment property, between a small community and a global brand, between the residents' right to quiet and the world's desire to explore. And in that negotiation, the most important question is not how to make Lofoten more famous. It is how Lofoten can remain a real place to live, even when the world arrives. Not just a beautiful backdrop for others to pass through, but a homeland where local people can still work, raise families, and belong. There is something easy to forget when Lofoten is seen through beautiful film. It is not only about mountains, or the sea, or snow, or the aurora borealis. It is also about the people who choose to stay. Through long winters, through stormy seas, through uncertain fishing seasons, and through changes they cannot fully control. Staying in Lofoten is not always a romantic choice. It can mean accepting distance from the bigger cities, accepting that some opportunities will always be outside the archipelago, accepting that the weather may slow down ordinary plans, and accepting that your village, once part of a small local community, may now appear in millions of photos online. But staying also means keeping a connection that is hard to replace. It means knowing exactly how the winter light changes on the hillsides behind your house. It means remembering the sound of boats returning to the harbor. It means understanding why the smell of dried fish in the wind is not only the smell of work, it is the smell of history. It means growing up along familiar small roads and docks, inside warm, brightly lit houses, while outside, beyond the windows, lie the cold sea and the Arctic darkness. Some young people may leave, some may return, and Lofoten will continue to change as it has always changed across generations. But as long as there are still people who see the sea as more than a beautiful view, Lofoten remains something deeper. The sea is part of their lives, part of their memory, part of who they are. And as long as that is true, Lofoten has not become only a picture for outsiders to admire. It remains home. As the last rays of sunlight fall on the red rooftops by the water, Lofoten continues its rhythm of life. Slow, cold, breathtakingly beautiful, but never as easy as the photographs might suggest. Here, people do not simply live beside the sea. They live with the sea. They work for the sea. They worry about the sea. And they pass the memory of the sea from one generation to the next. Lofoten reminds us that some places cannot be understood through a short trip or through one perfect photograph. To understand a land, we have to look at the people who remain. After the tourists leave, after the peak season ends, after the aurora borealis fades from the sky, and after life returns to work, weather, family, difficult choices, and quiet trade-offs. Perhaps it is in remote places like Lofoten that we realize something important. The deepest beauty of a land is not only in its landscape, it is in the way people learn to belong to it. If you want to continue exploring the world's remote, harsh, and little-known regions, join us on our next journeys.